Hi everyone. Today, once again, we're joined by Mr. Ajay Singh. He has a kennel from Patiala. He's based out of California in the United States, and we're here to discuss our favorite topic again, the German Shepherd breed. So, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. And, the topic we're going to discuss is the topic we've discussed many times over before, which is the DDR dogs. And
Sure.
and we grew up through the times where, DDR dogs were around. In fact, I
Yes.
went through that period when the wall came down. We
Sure.
saw DDR dogs. We loved some of the DDR dogs, but that was a long time ago. And it just seems like people still talk about DDR dogs and sometimes in the wrong context. So I think that's one of the things that we need to discuss to shed some light on some of the things we liked about DDR dogs, the state of the DDR dogs, and what is DDR to start with, because you and I both go over to India and people always, or we get calls or messages from people in India. They always say, do you have DDR dogs? And we are always trying to correct them, but for some reason, it doesn't stick. So hopefully people will watch this video and learn something from this video so that we don't have to keep repeating ourselves. Yeah. But don't count on
More
it. Yeah.
more than that, I would like to, like you mentioned, let's start with talking about what actually is DDR. DDR was the Deutsche Democratic Republic, or the erstwhile Democratic Republic of Germany, or East Germany from its more popular name. This was an invention of World War II when the Soviets won the war for the Allies, and the United States and all the Western allies like England, etc. They came on the west side of the wall, so they were West Germany, and on the east were the Soviets and the Eastern Bloc countries. Czech Republic, which was formerly Yugoslavia, the whole bloc was Yugoslavia, and many other countries, Poland, Hungary, all these countries behind the Iron Wall, or the Iron Curtain as it's known in the West. The dogs that remained in the Eastern Bloc were not so numerous, so they had a smaller or limited gene pool. In the West, they had the opportunity, or the good fortune, or the misfortune, however, whichever camp you're in, of the show-line dogs, which became the show-line dogs from the late 70s to the mid 80s, when you got involved with the breed, and I was, not even born yet. And when the wall came down, I was still in my diapers. And this was the evolution of the two populations, where we had Kanto, Quanto, all these dogs on the west side that spurred the revolution of the show line dogs, what became the giant global phenomena of the show line dogs. Some working lines also remained there in the west, but the population in the east, or the DDR country, developed individually on its own accord, because they had such limited dogs. They had to come up with a really innovative way of judging those dogs, or classifying those dogs, or creating a breed survey for those dogs, which was scalar in nature, where the first four digits, so let's say if it was 5555/55, the first four digits, the first four fives were out of 0 to 10, and the last two were 1 to 5. And they talked about the anatomy, they talked about the temperament of the dog, they talked about the breed type, and they talked about the hardness and character. Am I on the
Yeah.
right page so far?
I mean, we are on the right page. Let's talk about the big division. Obviously, when the breed started, it was one country, right?
Yes,
So and
absolutely. Yep.
there was a bigger population of German Shepherd dogs on the western side and a
Yes.
smaller population on the eastern side. Even today, there are fewer dogs on the East German side, or what used to be East German, and there are more
Yes.
dogs on the West German side, what used to be the West German. So over the division was not so pronounced early on, but later on, as the breed started getting more popular, the West German side found it easier to sell show dogs, all over the world, or to popularize the show dog, even though it was working dog breed But when you and I go over to India or other parts of the world, you know, I don't think people understand what the working side is. Okay. I think only in the recent years we have seen working people in India finding are getting more and more into training dogs. People in China are getting more and more into training dogs. But these people were buying German Shepherd dogs for a long, long time. You saw the in other parts of the world, the German Shepherd was looked just, the way they looked at the breed was very similar to the way they look at any other breed, which is mostly run them around the show ring, and whoever has the best anatomy wins, and the winner gets all the breedings, And I don't think that even when the Martin brothers were around, when the breed got very popular, that they were trying to sell the working dog concept, all over the world. The working dog concept was kind of kept like, in Germany, it was necessary, and it was like this whole idea that these are working dogs and they're exclusive because we can work them in Germany. They can bite, they can do all the other work. It was more glamorized rather than spread around the whole world as like, oh, you should be working your dogs because it's a working dog breed, or the breeding should be based on the working aspect or the working characteristics of a dog. Okay. So this is the way the breed was sold to the rest of the world as a show dog breed. But maybe in Germany, because of few breeders, the working aspects, of the breed was kept alive, in Germany, on the
The
Western.
thing about Germany was because Germany always had the breed survey system where the dogs, each breeding dog had to be breed surveyed, had to be titled and breed surveyed before breeding, whether it was a herding title or whether it was a Schutzen title at that time, as it was called. These titles, to some degree, I mean, the dogs all didn't need to be, class A students or, top of the charts to be able to procure those titles. They had to follow set certain parameters to be able to go through the standardized testing in order to be able to be bred from, which was generally absent from every other country. And also the other requirement in Germany was even the parents, if you have to place highly or if the dog has to be recorded as a stud dog or a brood female for the future, both the parents need to be breed surveyed, because if you don't have two generations of breed surveys forever, it's been the case that you cannot achieve the highest ratings in the shows, in the breed shows, that is. Which
And that's
concept
probably
is
what kept IGP around for so many years, because
sure,
if the
sure,
breed
because the
survey
working
was not,
population was rather tiny.
yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
the
And
the working dogs were probably more popular today than they were,
sure,
in the history of the,
I think the working dog is at its all-time popularity, in my opinion,
right,
as
right.
the show line gets more and more rhetoric online, so to
So
speak.
the one thing that I noticed, like early on when I got involved with the breed, whenever we talked about the East German dogs, okay, the way they were described as, were they have big heads, they have darker colors, they have somewhat lighter eyes, they're not so healthy, and they're not very trainable.
Sure.
And on
Harder
the
dogs.
not necessarily harder, but kind of dumber, okay, to be
Sure.
honest with you, okay. uh and the West German side was considered to be, oh, these are more intelligent dogs, we keep health records, of these dogs, they are prettier to look at, blah blah blah. And
When you say more intelligent, it could just be a little more sensitive or handler sensitive.
exactly,
Yeah,
so and neither one of the statements are closer to the truth, okay, because East Germans were not there to defend themselves, because not
of course.
many of them spoke English, not many of them were able to go out in public and say, the West German side, it's like just like people who write the history. The winners always write the history, right? And they always,
Sure.
have their side of the history, not the other side. So the West German side was more popular, and they defined the breed whichever way they wanted to, or they defined the rest of the world the way they wanted to. It's like they always said, our records are more true than, and the East German records are all falsified, or the Czech records are all falsified. I mean, today, if you look at it, West German, I mean, back then, even if you brought in a Czech dog or an East German dog into the West German lines, it was considered to be, like,
Heresy.
yeah,
Heresy. It was considered to
yeah,
be heresy. Yeah.
yeah. It was not considered
It's
to
like breeding show lines and working lines now
working
together.
lines. It was considered
Yeah.
this. It was considered the same way too.
Yep.
As far as the eye color goes, we have both seen that it doesn't take very long, to breed the eye color out. There were certain things that we both liked about the East German dogs. They lived longer,
Yeah.
they were healthier in many aspects. Okay.
More
And
robust build.
more, yeah. And maybe because they didn't go so much into the West German side. The West German side, the people in power started messing around too much with the structure, of the shepherd. And and some of the things we see today are the results of, all the manipulation of the body type to make the movement, whichever way they want, or in the name of movement. But in the name of movement, many of the characteristics of the dogs were totally ignored, because I think they lost goal of where they wanted to go with the breed.
So that flies in the face of the statement that the working dogs, or the dogs from East Germany, let's say, or the quote unquote erstwhile DDR dogs, they, even though they were working from a smaller gene pool, they were considered quote unquote an inferior on the Western side. But that flies in the face of that argument if they're more robust and longer lived.
Yes, it does. And I think, but we really don't know everything about the East German dogs, because when the border wall came down, I was around at that time.
Sure.
You could buy East German dogs in dozens, okay,
Sure.
for less than $500 per dog, okay,
Right.
because those dogs were taken out of commission, and a lot of
Sure.
dogs were, put to sleep, because the same thing, everybody talks about these border patrol dogs. Border patrol dogs have to be very alert, because
Yep.
they don't have to, so in order to the dog to
The
be alert,
nerve threshold is a lot lower.
they have to be a little bit on the nervous side, so they immediately, alert on little sounds and all that stuff.
Sure.
I wouldn't claim to know a lot of these dogs, but when we generalize dogs as East German dogs or West German dogs, we kind of sometimes lump them together. We try to, make it sound like there was only one East German dog and there was only one West German dogs, or all the West
Yep.
German dogs were the same kind and all the East German dogs were the same kind. I
Yep.
think when the Western side tried to popularize the breed, and even in the name of protection, we talk about dogs who are really protective, because, if you look at today's dogs who are doing protection work, if they were really protective dogs, the breed would not be as popular as it is
No,
today.
it would not be.
It would not be,
we
because
call we call it a sport for a reason.
yeah, exactly. Because there are very few dogs that are really protective that you can live with, and they have to be in certain environment where the handler can control them, and and the environment is such that they can afford to be protective. So
There's another
that's
conversation we have all the time. It's like the dog's healing for the ball, not for the handler.
Yeah.
There's
It,
plenty of high level sport dogs. You can toss a ball in the house and take whatever you want, and the dog will
now,
be content with the ball.
the fact is that there are very few dogs who have the natural behavior.
Yep.
Yeah, whether it's protective behavior, whether it's tracking behavior, whether it's, obedience behavior, there are very few dogs who would work for their handlers. There are very few dogs, who work for protection is real. Okay.
Then again,
And
the question arises when we have these quote unquote real dogs that perceive real threat and they're compulsed to by their natural behavior or genetic behavior to act accordingly. Most of these dogs in today's society, most people can't handle, and then immediately they would be put
they
down.
can, they exactly. And I mean,
Yeah.
and that's a fake thing too, because everybody thinks that IGP dogs are going to protect you, blah, blah, blah. In reality, dogs don't have to be IGP dogs, okay?
No.
They to be protective. You
Yep.
could have dogs with good protection instinct. They would protect you regardless of training. But when we went over to make this as a sport and we tried to tell everybody that we have a breeding type dog or whatever, anything like that, right? Breeding type dog means that it meets the Shetson criteria, which is the protection work, obedience work, and tracking work has to meet the minimum requirements. And then we start looking for dogs who excel. Then we started relying on other means, whether it's ball drive or food drive or prey drive or this drive or that drive. But all of these drives were good, but they were kind of faking the behavior that should naturally be present in a dog, so that for 7, 8 minutes, 10 minutes on the field, the dog shows the right behavior. So everybody believes that this is really a protection dog. This is really a good obedience dog. This is really a good tracking dog. But in reality, we know that very few dogs have that natural instinct of a good German Shepherd. And ideally, those dogs should be used for breeding. But, to find those dogs, it's not so easy either. Okay. Because the goal is to have that natural behavior as part of the breed. Okay.
The second funny part is we talk about fighting instinct, and in the same breath, we talk about hard, calm grips, which are prey grips.
Yeah. I mean,
it's an oxymoron.
Yeah. We can maybe dissect the routine on, another time.
No, I'm not trying to dissect the routine. It's, it's then again, we're nerding out and going to nuances. Then we're talking about the pitch and the quality or the pronunciation of the aus command.
Yeah. So
and where half a point should be taken, which is completely redundant. But I'm just we're talking about fighting spirit, and a dog needs to be fighting the helper. And then we're talking about grips that are calm, hard, which any person who's worked dogs for for a period of time will tell you are always prey grips.
Yes, but the dominant grips, in my opinion, they're somewhat different, where the dog says, "You're not taking me where you want to take me," and
right.
I look for those where the dog tells you go where I go. Okay.
Right.
And to me, that's what I am looking for, when I.
But that's not necessarily a full grip. That's not necessarily a dog just biting the sleeve as hard as he can. It could be a dog pushing into the helper. It could be a dog, shaking the helper around, not trying to get away from the helper or the stick hand, like you see a lot of times. Like the helper's trying to drive the dog, and the dog's trying to steer away from the helper, and it's perceived as fight when it's actually a flight reaction when the dog's getting away from the stick threat. But you cannot penalize, in my opinion, and that's just my opinion, whatever water it holds, is like if a dog is pushing into the helper and actually bringing the fight to the helper, you cannot penalize that behavior and say, oh yeah, the grips could have been better. That is silly, in my opinion. That's like saying the croup could be longer.
I think that the judge has to judge the assertive behavior from the dog. Okay. If you can judge the assertive behavior, by what you're seeing in the dog, right?
Yes.
then to me that's a dominant dog, and that's what we should try to promote. And
Yes.
as a dog, okay, and not get too caught up with 3/4 on one side, full on the other side, okay, pulsating, not
I
pulsating.
remember that trial. That was hilarious.
Yeah, okay. And I don't buy into that theory. I mean, I know it, my comment will not be liked by a lot of people, but yeah, because I think people look at this as a sport. Maybe that's what they are, that's what they feel that they should be doing. I look at the sport as a part of the breed, and I feel that what I want to see, but they also feel that they are the ones who have to split hair and find a better performance than the other. And the reasoning I get is there's one dog who's full grip and who's just as assertive, as the other dog who has 3/4, on one side, and
It
he's just
cannot be. It cannot be.
I I don't know. I think I would, if I were the judge, I would pay more attention, but I'm not the judge. Okay. I would pay more attention to the dominance. My dog, if my dog shows dominance in guarding, my dog shows dominance in protection, my dog shows, I mean, in the gripping phase, and my dog shows eagerness to engage. Okay. And my dog shows, you know, uh, the nerve strength to go through the fight, okay, or the pressure phase. That to me is an excellent dog from a breeding standpoint, okay. And
Sure.
also the presence to out and go into switch drives and go back into guarding. But now we're getting into away from the topic that we wanted to talk about.
Sure.
So the other thing we wanted to talk about is now these DDR dogs, the wall came down over 40 years ago, right? And
Yes.
people still try to use the DDR logo or the DDR label, to
Yeah.
sell puppies. Okay. Is that correct? What do you have to say about that?
Well, it's in my opinion, it's just plain false advertising because for an American from an American perspective, Germany, the entirety of Germany is as big as the state of Wisconsin, which is not very big. I mean, you can drive from morning to evening and you can, traverse the entire length of the country. So to say that this small population of dogs that was isolated east of the wall before the Cold War, once the Cold War ended, the population didn't get dispersed. And like you were saying, you could buy these dogs by the dozen. A lot of them were put down, unfortunately, as it might have been. Uh, to say that that population stayed isolated in that one pocket and was not mixed with all the other dogs, where when you had excellent dogs on either side intermingling with each other, we've both got dogs that have those dogs in the back, right?
I mean, yeah, I mean, for the Robbie Ingo Rudigen side, Robbie
Yes.
Glauconnect, I have
Yeah.
that line coming through Yukon, from Mac, Mac goes
Yes.
to that on the top
Mac von
side.
der Kine, for
Yeah,
example. Yeah.
yeah.
And then
So
we can talk about the alley line from Jelana from the mother side.
yeah, but that's not East German,
No,
that
that's what I'm saying. That's a West German line. So there's an East German line coming from the father side, the West German line coming from the mother side.
yeah, I think the selection should just be based on good dogs or what you think is good dogs because
That's
it was
the
good.
whole point. That's the whole point of it at the end of it. But it's like when people are using these monikers to sell these dogs, it's it's basically false advertising. That's all it is at the end of the day.
Totally,
Yeah,
totally. And
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 these
and
people should be. You should be very careful when they're using these techniques as a USP, like a unique selling point, to sell these dogs. That you have to be more careful about what other stuff they're selling you.
so
Which to
so
nowhere is being sold to you.
as far as light eyes are concerned, we see light eyes on the West German dogs too, right?
Oh, plenty, plenty.
Yeah. So then let's talk about the other part, the the dumb or not so dumb. We've seen one side where we kept on saying trainability, trainability, trainability to the point of being nervous, okay? And then we have stable nerve on the other side, okay? So sometimes a stable nerve is considered to be, dumb whereas they could be more intelligent with a different definition. Whereas, a dog with thin nerve, could be considered to be more trainable, on the
I
other
think
side.
I think personally, I think that's a matter of the handler's intelligence, not the dog's intelligence.
Exactly. So you really can't use this definition to. Then the other part is this is a
Again,
pure
when we're talking in absolutes about anything, we're being absolutely stupid because
yeah.
nothing is an absolute. In nature, especially, there are no absolutes.
So then the next thing is pure DDR dogs. Okay. Pure DDR dogs means, okay, you're basing your breeding just on the geographical, origin of the dog.
Geopolitical,
Yeah,
geopolitical origin of the dog,
yeah,
so to speak. So
exactly.
after 1989, no such thing as pure DDR exists, which is
Yeah,
a fallacy.
yeah, right. So if you're doing that selection based on just geopolitical, location of the where the dog is coming from, that how smart could that be? A selection, breeding selection based on that and that alone. Okay.
It's goofy.
Yeah, then let's talk about large heads. Okay. Large heads, small heads. We've seen large heads on both sides. We have
Yeah,
seen
of course.
small heads on both sides too. Okay. I mean, if you know the correct structure, we both don't like some of the large heads on the West German side, which are not German Shepherd heads.
They're
Because
atypical of the breed. They're absolutely not breed type.
that doesn't conform to the breed standards. Okay. Loose lips, beady eyes,
You're
and
right. Wide
rounded
ears,
yeah, bare ears,
raised muzzles.
yeah, that kind of stuff. We don't like it because all you have to do is go back to the breed standards to know what's
Yep.
right. Yeah. So when someone is advertising these things, all they're doing is preying on someone's, you know,
They're bad faith actors, essentially.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Is basically saying because you don't know anything, we'll put under everything under one label because that's label sells. We'll put everything under East German, not try to educate you, not try to tell you what the breed standards are all about, not tell you why I did the breeding, but let me put everything under East German line and try to sell you the puppy. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that label is just falsifying, providing false data to sell puppies or to sell dogs or whatever. Okay.
100% agreed.
And as far as health is concerned, one side being healthier than the other side, do you buy into that?
No, absolutely not. There's plenty of
Absolutely.
unhealthy dogs on the western
On
side,
both sides.
plenty of healthy
And
dogs on the eastern side, or that
and
descend from those lines.
why would the health matter for the dogs who are way back there? I
No,
mean,
it doesn't.
yeah, I mean, breeding is affected, like I've always said, look at the pedigree from the left to the right.
Yep.
Breeding is affected more by immediate parents, grandparents, and then less affected as you go, further away from the dogs. Okay. So all of these things, one has to educate himself and say, this is the real truth, and I'm not buying into labels. And hopefully our discussion will help some of those people.
Yeah, we can only hope.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Nothing else we can talk about as far as East German dogs are concerned. Maybe next time we'll pick a different topic.
Sounds good. Always nice joining you, sir.
Do you want to summarize everything the way you hear it before we?
So to summarize, I'd say talking about DDR dogs on an island by itself, if we can talk about it from a historical standpoint, that this such thing emerged after the World War II, during the Cold War era, as they evolved or they were bred. I should not use the word evolved because it was controlled breeding. So as they were bred on the eastern side of the curtain, of the Iron Curtain, so they had because they had limited genetics, they came out with a more ingenious way of assessing their dogs, where they had a scalar system where they rated everything.
Limited genetics, limited
Yes.
resources,
Sure.
limited place, limited population to work with. Okay.
Right.
So how come?
But the system had a lot of good though. Like the system they came up with to identify those dogs was a good system.
It was a good system, and I wish, some of that system was, you know kept in
That's
place.
it. So we use a part of that system. We are trying to, I think they're trying to incorporate, like especially the SV. Now we're trying to go towards the ZTP to qualify for a breed survey, or the ZTP as it's known in German or English elsewhere outside of America. So we're using traits of the dogs or the drive states of the dogs to see which are more pronounced, whether it's in obedience, whether it's in tracking, whether it's in bite work. But we're not using an entire IGP exercise as a requirement for the breed survey. So you have to have the Wesen-Beurteilung test, which is the character assessment test, where we look at the nerve of the dog, we look at the surface sensitivities, sound sensitivities, and so on and so forth. And then we're using generalized testing in the ZTP or the ZTP as a way to the breed survey. So I think that is from the Eastern Bloc era, that, or it draws inspiration from that. And then we have the scalar system, which does not exist, but we still talk about, when we look at our breed survey document, it talks about drive present, yes, pigmentation, enough, a lot, so on and so forth. So there's like things that are described in there, but it's not on a scale. Because once we start adding scale, like we talked about IGP becoming a sport, in my opinion, you start losing a lot of meaning in the testing when it's not the expert's opinion, but now it's a number. It's like, what's the difference between the VA1 and the VA9? Not really, but one's the world seeker. So there was this debate
Yeah,
from
yeah,
a few
and
years ago.
everybody
It
goes
was,
to long
yeah,
live the
right.
king.
There
Yeah,
was such a goofy debate about when Mondo became Seeger, the world
yeah.
Seeger, VA1 dog, and the other dog, ASAP, became VA2, right? And everybody's like, oh my God, they robbed ASAP and this and that and blah, blah, blah. What utter nonsense. The
Well,
dog got a lot more breedings.
the breeding they give you such a big bandwidth to breed from. Okay,
Right.
nobody's twisting your arm that you can't breed to a VA2 dog. Okay,
But
no,
I'm just talking about
you like
they were
ASAP,
talking
go to
about
ASAP. Yeah.
everybody was talking like the dog got an SG rating in the working class and he was VA2. How silly are these arguments?
I mean, why do people get carried away by the placements of these dogs in
Because it's
shows?
a spectacle. It's a spectacle. That's what it is. And that's what it was.
Well, because we lost track of why we are doing all these things. These
100%.
in the spectacles, one thing is lost, which is the reason why we do all of this stuff. Of course, some
At the
people.
at the end of the day, it was a breed show. The Bundesliga Zuchtschau is the biggest breed show in the world. And the dog got the most favorable rating of BA, which is a breed show rating. So you're a select dog in the excellent group, the first few choice studs that are recommended for breeding over above else, because they have perceived qualities that are above and beyond all the other dogs. Once you're
Well,
a part of that elite group, then you've won.
my way of looking at this is, when you bring a dog to the national, you know, there's a guy who's standing on the field who's judging your dog. Okay,
Sure,
but there's a big audience, who are also judging your dog the same way.
sure.
And I've been on the field, and I've been gone through times when I didn't do so well. But then there'll be multiple people in the stands, who would come to you afterwards and say, we really like your dog. We really like the way he works. We like the way he acts. We like the way, he's put together. We like the overall dog as a representative of the breed. So I feel that when you go to a big competition, national competition, you're showing your dog to the national audience. When you
I would
go,
make a distinction. I would make a distinction there when you're going to the WSV or the BSP or the National Schutzen Championship or IGP Championship now. I would make a distinction that you have a much more specialized crowd that is interested in that portion. So, in my opinion, of what they're looking at, their opinion would be a lot more educated than, let's say, what a giant spectacle the German Sieger Show or any other Sieger Show has become, which is more for mass consumption. And as Osho said, the government is for the people, from the people, but the people are stupid.
yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, so Anyway, the discussion's getting long, so we'll save it for another day. All right.
Take care, sir. Thank you for
Thank you.
joining.
Okay, thank you. All right, bye.
Bye.